Welcome to part 2 of the podcast with Major. If you haven't seen part 1 already, then pause this right now and go there. We talk about Major's early life in Africa and what brought him to the US. And if you have watched it, amazing. Let's jump right into part 2. A question there for you, because you asked me before, and I don't know if I really answered that when you said, are you still keeping in touch with people from
Yes.
school and from my program? So it's tough. I mean, I'm definitely keeping in touch with my friends, but I'd say keeping in touch with kind of that greater community. And there's still a lot of people that I liked and I'd see most days from my class and stuff, but aren't immediate friends. And I would say that I haven't really been in contact with them much, and that's something that I want to do. And I see a lot of value in keeping those relationships. What would you say to someone like me that wants to do that but hasn't? Like, what recommendations would you tell me?
You genuinely want to keep up with everyone?
I mean, it's hard. Like,
How
obviously,
many students did you have on your campus?
on like the whole campus, maybe like 30,000 or
Okay.
something.
So right. So that's a good
But
size.
I mean,
Good
like
normal
in
size.
at least in my program, there's like 500-600, and then obviously there's other people from other programs. But there's like a couple hundred that I definitely was in contact with. But it's pretty hard to
Yeah.
keep contact with a couple hundred people for
So
sure.
your question is, what should you do? What do I think you should do?
What do you think I should do? What if, let's say, someone's listening and they're in a similar boat? What advice would you have for them?
All right. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Check this out. So two things, right? This will be very hard for you to do for your whole school, right? But let's say just your class, if there's about, or your program, if there's about 600 of you guys or whatever, right? Go to LinkedIn, look them all up, add
Hmm.
all of them, and start inviting them one by one to have a conversation with you on your podcast. Because having conversations with you is so genuine, and I feel like we could talk about anything. And honestly, no one is reaching out to them, right? And we consume a lot of podcasts, but the reason why we consume a lot of podcasts is because humans want to communicate. We want to converse. We want to ask questions. We want to pick brains. We want to listen. We want to share. We want to create, right? We want to collaborate. We want to be questioned. We want to question. And
Hmm.
ultimately, a platform like a podcast is something that friends do without the microphone. Like conversations that you and I are having, I have it with my friends without the cameras and everything. It's like we talk about the wildest things, from P. Diddy all the way to like national security, right? We talk about anything, and it's just humans want to obviously converse. So I would say you have already something that you should be doing, and you are
Hmm.
doing it, and it's amazing. I love your podcast, by the way. I was able to I checked out one episode. I forgot his name, but I checked out one episode before I got on here, just to
Appreciate it.
be obviously make sure that I was on my toes and stuff, and I understood who the audience was. But um, you're already doing it, right? I would just up the marketing and really get in touch with your alma mater and your program mates, even kids that are probably like still in school right now. I would literally build that audience because, like I told you, one of the biggest mistakes and one of the smartest things I also did. So it's both a big mistake and it's also smart is leaving Portland State as soon as I graduated. So after I
Mhm.
graduated, like literally like 3 months after I graduated, I moved to Canada. I moved to Montreal, right?
Oh,
And I was like, I'm out of Oregon, the Pacific Northwest. I'm going to pursue, my happiness. And I remember I was sleeping on my sister's couch in Montreal, and like a few weeks had gone past, and a month has gone past, and Christmas was approaching. And during that week of Christmas, I was like, I have to start doing something now because I'm not Canadian. I can't get a job in Canada. And I had an idea of what I wanted to do already as far as like entrepreneurship and stuff, and I had been doing it. And ultimately I was like, I have to do something that is going to force me to grow, and I have to be somewhere where I feel like I can do anything and make it. And I don't know if you're religious or not, but I prayed on it for a while, and I kept getting signs to move to New York City in the most random ways. Like I'm walking down the street, I see a truck drive fast, and it's literally a white truck. Nothing is on there except New York, NY, or like a
mhm.
zip code that's New York. And I'm like, what in the world? So I ended up moving to New York City on January 12th of 2016 with only like $600 in my pocket. I knew no one, right? I took a one-way bus, Greyhound ticket to New York, and that was like one of the best decisions I ever made, right? It literally made me. But the reason why I said that that's also one of the worst decisions I made was I left campus too abruptly, too soon, when I was at a place where I was literally building a name for myself on campus
Hmm.
within the community and also within other schools too, because at the time 401 PSU was a thing, but I was working on 401 Oregon State and also 401 U of O, right? And my whole idea was I could travel the country and do this for a bunch of campuses, right? But I moved very abruptly, obviously, which I think was a mistake because I lost touch with a lot of the community back there. Till this day and age, like I still travel back to Portland State, and I feel like I don't know anyone anymore because I was away from it so long, right? I was in New York City and I was trying to become something, and ultimately the people that I still keep in touch with, a lot of them don't really like work at Portland State no more. They're at other schools and stuff. And I did a poor job of really going back and connecting with the new students and like the new officials, the new provost, the new dean, right? Like the new athletic directors. Terrible job at it. So you're in a much better seat than I am, and you have something that I did not have when I was in your stage, and you have a platform that enables people to actually get to know each other. Honestly, I would even do this as like like on your channel on YouTube, enable other people to also have their own podcasts on it that are part of your same program, right? And literally do it as a group, and ultimately, like it's going to connect all of you guys because you know people that they don't know, but because you know them, the rest of them will get to know them, right? Because ultimately, in your program, somebody's at least one of you guys is going to become successful, right? It's like 600 people in your program, at least one is going to be
Yeah.
successful. Ultimately, that one person needs to know like 20 people, and those 20 people need to be connected with like hundreds of people, right? Because ultimately, when you're able to move as a unit, you become way more successful. And you also share the load, it's like you might have somebody in your program that's also trying to start a business or something, or that is also trying to start a podcast, or maybe they already have a very successful podcast, right? And they're hogging all of the clout, and essentially it's like teaming up together does make things easier. And this is just a side thing, a sidebar. I'm a big fan of not reinventing the wheel. Find out a way that you can actually support someone else that's doing something very well. I'll give you an example. And Netflix is never going to get back to me about this anyways, but I watch Love is Blind. I don't know if you watch
Yeah.
Love is Blind,
Uh,
but
yeah.
I watch Love. That's why I got to get off at like 4 or 4:30 or whatever it is, because I got to catch it with my lady and her friends, right? We're having a watch party at home here.
Okay.
So
Awesome.
so I tweet, I wrote a thread, I sent a message to Netflix yesterday, and I was like, hear me out. Imagine for shows like Love is Blind, Too Hot to Handle, or like The Circle, like
Hmm.
TV show, whatever it is
Yeah.
that's on Netflix. Just we need a live comment section while you're actually
Mm,
watching it. Like you can actually see it while you're actually watching it, right? Like
that would be
we
really
just need a
sick.
live
Yeah.
comment section. Exactly, right? And I literally listed out the pros and I listed out the cons. And
Hmm.
I was like, you guys definitely should be doing this, right? Somebody like myself would say, I'm going to go and build a streaming platform that actually enables people to actually turn that on, right? An entrepreneur would say that I'm not going to share this idea. I'm going to go and actually build it. And can I build it? Yes, I can actually go do it. But will it be as successful as Netflix? No. So it's like, or maybe it could be, right? But I personally think Netflix already has a lot of success. How can I actually help Netflix be more successful by just implementing this one thing that would better and ameliorate like the experience for everyone, right? So,
Hmm.
and that's why I believe in collaborating. You don't
Yeah.
necessarily need to go and create your own thing from scratch. Sometimes you can just like assist someone and bring your competency to whatever it is that they're doing and still have your fair share of this thing that you guys are building together. So ultimately, to answer your question, what should you be doing? Use your platform to bring more people on here. Use your platform, like build that emailing list, right? If you still have that edu email, utilize it, man. And like
Hmm.
literally save all that and send out like a mail marketer about your podcast. Like, hey, it's Ezra. I'm from so and so program or whatever. We probably met before, maybe, maybe not. However, I do have a podcast and I would love if you actually could check it out, or maybe fill out this form and we can have you on there so I can get to meet you. Boom.
Yeah.
Like,
That's
because
amazing.
I mean, how long ago did you graduate?
This like June this
So
year. Yeah.
all your classmates are either looking for work or not doing shit, right?
Pretty
It's
much,
like,
yeah.
what do you have to lose? Everyone's either trying, everybody's like, I mean, June. So right now, if you didn't have an internship or anything lined up, you're really sitting around applying for jobs, or you're like, I'm going to start a business from my parents' house or something like that. That's pretty much where everyone is.
Yeah.
Maybe there's that one kid that already has a very successful job at like a top firm or something, right? Like there's always that one kid. But everybody else is really trying to figure themselves out. So I would capitalize on that, man. It's
Yeah.
like that's a whole network. You came from a network of 30,000 people. I strongly recommend you go and you be a presence on campus, talk to the professors, ask your business professors if you could actually come back and actually speak to the students, right? Like, I mean, I took one business class my whole like career in my whole time in college, right? One, it was a marketing class. And I forget the professor's name, and it kills me. If you don't mind, I'm actually going to find or look for
Yeah,
his
yeah, do it.
I'm actually going to look for his name while I'm actually on LinkedIn, because I this guy did more for me than he actually can realize. His name is Jim Simmons.
Hmm.
So Jim Simmons, if you're watching this, I took your class. I forget what it was called, but it was like one of the fun foundational classes in marketing and advertising at Portland State. But he taught me what marketing was, and he was so good at like dissecting the differences between like keywords, right,
Hmm.
and practices and strategies and stuff, like or little things like puffery and what's the other one? It's so there's marketing, obviously, there's advertising, and then there's puffery, right? Puffery is essentially like it's pretty much like a sweet lie. It's like McDonald's when they show you their burger, it looks like the bun has like a skincare routine. It's like, and it's like very big, right? That's a form of puffery, but it works. You
Mm-hmm.
know, but it's Jim Simmons. If you're watching this, when I was in your class, when I was in Jim Simmons, Professor Simmons's class, I was working on a platform called Beauty Board Hub, right? And this was my senior year or junior year, yeah, my sophomore or junior year in college. I was working on this platform called Beauty Board Hub. It's actually a Canadian company, and I was a minority shareholder. And we were competing directly with Style Seat. So essentially, this was like years ago, like 2000 2014 or something. But ultimately, we were trying to build a platform that enabled people to book and order beauty services from their home, right?
Interesting.
Essentially, what we have now is like Booksy or The Cut or Style Seat.
Hmm.
But back then, it really was like a far-fetched idea. Style Seat was like in it, but they weren't really doing it that well. And we had a lot of traction in Canada. Like we had a bunch of like barbers and makeup artists and photographers and stuff that were featured on there. And I was building out that interface and that whole business, like and trying to market and trying to find my way while I was actually in Professor Simmons' class.
Hmm.
And it's
Wow.
crazy. He has no idea probably, right, until today when he watches this, obviously. But um, like keeping in touch with your past is a really great thing, because the older you get, the harder it is to actually make friends. Like, I do not kid you. I mean, we're about the same age. I don't want to date myself, but we're about the same age. But I do not kid you. If you went outside to a restaurant right now and just started talking to a random guy, they would look at you and be like, "Why are you talking to me?"
Mm-hmm.
But when
Yeah.
you're younger and you do it, it's like, "Oh, I think I made a new friend. He seems pretty cool." Right?
True.
So it's ultimately take advantage of that network that you've built and the relationships that you've built, and it'll propel you to be successful. Like to date, I still do things to try and keep in touch with people at Portland State every now and then, but ultimately I have to admit I've lost touch. Ultimately, I think the only time that I will really feel like I'm connected back to the school again is if or when I really do something major, I can maybe get invited to speak at commencement or something, right?
Mhm.
But until then, it'll probably never happen.
Well, that's all great advice. This might be a little bit of a, I don't know, a big question, but it just came to mind, and I'm curious your opinion. Where, so you're in entrepreneurship, and it seems that you've been doing many entrepreneurship ventures, and I'll ask a question about that in a second. But it seems like you said you took that one business class, so you weren't mainly focused on business as a study,
Not
but
at
now you're
all.
doing entrepreneurship.
Yep.
Ask a question. from your experience, what's your opinion if, let's say, someone wants to become an entrepreneur, they always know they want to go into business. What would you say for going to business school or studying at university versus not?
Yeah.
Because I've talked to people on the flip side that, in fact, the first guy on my podcast, so it's interesting having different perspectives. He's a videographer, entrepreneur, and he
Nice.
didn't go to school, and he thinks that was one of the best decisions of his life because he
Yep.
was able to get 4 years ahead right off the bat, right? Versus you'll obviously hear the flip side where you can also try different things, make new friends, make connections. So I'm curious your opinion on going versus not if entrepreneurship is what you want to do.
Yeah. No. I You'll have to send me that episode because I definitely would like to watch it and get his
Yeah,
perspective.
yeah, I'll
But
send it.
I agree. I think 4 years in an institution where, I mean, I'm not sure what it's like in Canada, but in America it's like 2 arms and a leg, to go to
Hmm.
school, right?
Yeah.
Tuition is crazy. Um, Ultimately, if I didn't have a scholarship to go to college, I never would have went. To be honest with you, when I was in high school, I was already doing what I'm doing today, right? Like
Hmm.
I had an internship with a company back then that called World Video Bank, which was a direct competitor of World Star, and I was already designing and stuff for them, right? I wasn't getting paid, but it was a great amount of experience. Like shout out if you ever heard of have you ever heard of the brand New Regime?
Sounds familiar.
They're well, it's Canadian, right? But they're like global now. So
Mm.
the founder's brother was literally the guy that took me under his wing and like pretty much like I was interning for his company when they were building this out. So this was way before New Regime. They had a company called Benjamin Bros, and they would have like a bunch of clients and stuff. And essentially, I was a form of intern for them. But I was like 14, 15. It's like had no business doing this stuff, but I was just great at what I do. School ultimately, like college, gives you a license to gamble. That's really what it
Hmm.
is. You know and I don't think it's something that you need to be successful, but it gives you a license to gamble. If you have a 4-year degree, you can take time off and travel the world, right? And like take 2 years off, three, four, maybe like take 1 to 3 years off, and you can screw up and like have fun or whatever, travel, try things, start a business, fail. And ultimately, when you come back that fourth year, you're probably going to be relatively where most of your peers are as well, right? So it's weird. Like life is kind of like this marathon, but ultimately it takes it's you have to go it's well, it's not really a marathon. I think it's more like hiking, because you get to see different heights when you're actually on the journey of hiking, right? I wouldn't
Yeah.
really think it's a marathon because that's a different perspective, but it's like when you're hiking, you get to a point where you can actually see the peak of the mountain, but you're so far away. It's like you're really far away, but you're already seeing the destination. That's pretty much life. It's like if you want to become something and you're at the bottom, you can literally see some people that are successful at it. You see them in your community, on TV, at restaurants, right? At work, it might be your boss, it doesn't matter, but you get to actually see these people, right? And ultimately, you make decisions in life that get you closer to being like them, if not next to them, or competing with them, right? So, uh, personally, like it's this is a question that I feel like everyone has to answer on their own. But
Hmm.
personally, for me, if I didn't have a scholarship, I never would have went to college, and I still think I would have become probably more successful than I would have today because I would have took bigger risks back then and had a
Hmm.
4-year start. Right? It's like I probably would have moved to New York City, like as a 19-year-old. Right? Like
Yeah.
I don't know what that could have felt like, but I still had that hustler spirit in me. It's like I was literally building things when I was in high school and building platforms and starting these businesses. The difference is I had no money and no means to market it, and also like no one really took me serious back then, right? So, and I was living in Eugene, Oregon. Like you can't create a buzz in Eugene, Oregon. But ultimately, I think if you get a chance to go to college and you're blessed enough to go to college, yes, you should go and use it. But I don't think it's necessary to help you be successful because education will always be there. And here's another thing too. A lot of people I went to school with, they'll like they did the undergraduate degree and then they did a master's like right away.
Hmm.
Terrible idea. It's like you're going to be 24 with a master's or like you're going to be 25 with an MBA. It's like you're not about to make the actual salary or the equivalent of that degree, right? It's like you can't walk into a job as a 25-year-old and be like, "Hey, I have a MBA and then I have this," and think you're going to make like that six-figure amount, or that double six figure that you should be paid for that role with that degree. It's like, because ultimately it's experience, right? So it's like don't have that many years in you or proof of experience to actually do this. Like, so two things I strongly advise people: if you can do, if your plan is to do something in the real world while you're in college and you can do it now, you should start it while you're actually in school, right? Whether that be videography, design, development, some forms of back end engineering you can, but not like civil engineering, obviously. You
Yeah.
can't be a lawyer, you can't be a doctor, obviously, while you're in school or anything like that. But if it is anything, any profession that you can actually do, but the degree just makes you look credible at it, start early, because I started designing when I was like 11. It's like my first website was like when I was like 8. I was creating
Wow,
blogs and stuff. So it's like
that's crazy.
you, and it's crazy because in my era, it's normal. Like I grew up in an era where we had MS-DOS, and that's how we used to program video games, right? It's like if you wanted to save money and not go to the video game store and buy your own copy, you would borrow it from a friend, bring it home, and you would program it, duplicate it, and send them back the CD, and you would also
Yeah.
have the game. So it's like, once again, your environment, right? Survival of the fittest, right? Like your environment literally grooms you to either you swim or you sink. So if you're fortunate enough to be around the right environment, it'll push you to obviously be a specific way, which ultimately I'm like, the epitome of that. But more importantly, if you know what you want to do, don't let anybody tell you that you need to be a specific age or you need to have a specific degree to do it. Like, if you really believe in yourself and you have a passion for it, start today. It's like, I guarantee you're going to beat whoever it is that person is that, that didn't want to give you that job or didn't think that you were good enough or whatever. As long as you just practice it, you go at it every single day, no matter what it is, unless it's medicine,
Yeah.
legal or anything that you actually do need, the credentials for. But for most trades though, it's like, especially in this day and age, you have the internet. It's like you have social media, it's like capitalize on it. Like it was nowhere near what I had when I was getting started. It's like if you want to do something and if you believe in yourself and you truly have a passion for it, don't never let anybody tell you that you can't do it or that you shouldn't do it. It's like you know yourself better than anyone else. So you should just go for it. If you fail, so what? It's like people fail every day. The difference is you get to fail early, and that's way better than anybody else. Like, what I tell my friends all the time, like, I've been an entrepreneur for a while. I've, like, in my earlier years, I had to kind of do like both. Like I work, like I'll take up like a contract or whatever it is for like a month or two because I'm like, shit, I got bills, right? And running
Mhm.
a business also costs money. I can use that as an influx into my business or whatever it is. And I did that for a while in and like on and off. But I always think about this, and like I have a girlfriend that's like, she's amazing and very understanding, and enables me to actually be the person that I actually want to be, and even better. Like, she makes me better. And one of the things I always sit back about is like, when we have kids and stuff, like, yeah, I'm an entrepreneur and everything, but like one of the benefits about the decisions that I made in life is that when it's all said and done, I can be 50 years old and I could go for a really good paying job because I have the type of experience that some people will never have.
Mhm.
Like, I've made money out of thin air. I've sold products and services to people, like myself, not hiring people to do it. I have managed people. I have hired people to do it. I have managed money, large sums of money. I have, mitigated risks. I've took a lot of losses. These experiences are literally like CEO experiences, right? I
Mhm.
could at least go to a company when I'm like in my 40s and at least be a director. So it's like, I didn't spend, 15 years after college working up the ladder. I did something that was fun and I pursued and I took risks and I made money and obviously lost money too. There are ups and downs, but I get to have a story that a lot of people wouldn't. But even if it all doesn't work out, I get to be at the same place as them. Like, how great is that? You know? So it's ultimately what I tell people is like, entrepreneurship is really cool. There are some things that are a little bit different though. Like, I was a firm believer that you couldn't be an entrepreneur if you had a full-time job, right? And I quit my job and I forced myself to make things happen. And I was doing like Postmates delivery in New York and
Mhm.
stuff, and trying to make ends meet essentially, right? Because I really believed in myself and everything. But would I tell somebody to do that? No, I don't think that's the right idea anymore because there wasn't that much money to be made back then. Nowadays, wages are a lot higher. So I think if you have a job that pays you decently well and enables you to put aside like a few thousands every month at least, I would stay at that job and just like grind it out, work extra hours, like wake up early, go to bed late, and work on your business until it doesn't make any sense anymore. But back in my era, it's like, it was almost like a religion thing. It's like you got to be in it or you got to be out of it. It's like you choose. So, but this day and age, I would definitely say if you're making a good income and you have an idea, you have a business, there's no better time to start a business than when you have a job. Just like how there's no better time to look for a job than when you have a job. So
Hmm.
that's my two
Great
cents.
advice. Yeah, great advice all around there. And I'd love to hear more about what exactly you're doing right now in your entrepreneurship.
So right now, my main focus is newbie websites. So when I began building websites like ages ago, right, like late 90s, early 2000s, and I fell in love with websites. Websites were very accessible back then as far as cost and also means, right?
Mhm.
Now, it did require some type of understanding of, CSS and HTML and all those different things, but there wasn't there weren't big companies monetizing, and making money off of people that didn't necessarily have the resources. So what newbie websites is we actually compete directly with Squarespace, Wix,
Mhm.
Webflow, all those platforms, except WordPress and Shopify, obviously, because we're different. But essentially, small businesses need a website, right? It's like we all, like even regular people like you and I need a website.
Yeah.
You have pretty much two options. You either build it yourself, right? Or you actually hire someone to actually build it. Now, when you hire someone to build it, you have an option. Do you spend tens of thousands of dollars and stay in the States? Or do you spend a few thousands of dollars and hire that one friend of yours? Or do you go across the pond and, hire
Mhm.
somebody in India, right?
Yeah.
And you usually get what you pay for. But the problem is, a lot of businesses don't realize that a website is like, it's just like your business. You can't build your business and just leave it there, right? Your website needs upkeeping, it needs
Yeah.
maintenance. Your website might grow. You might need new pages. You might need new sections. You might need some compliance features added to the website. You might have like a complete rebranding, right? And what really happens is a lot of businesses will pay, somebody across the world a few hundreds of dollars, or they'll pay somebody like an agency or something tens of thousands of dollars, right? And they'll do a website that looks amazing. And then in 8 months, they'll have changes that they need to be made to the website, and they can't make it themselves. And they have to keep hiring and depending on someone else to actually make those changes. So what we're doing at Newbie is it's an all-in-one solutions for websites. So we host it, we build it, we design it for you, and we also actually, bring it to life as far as like the development. So it's pretty much like cheaper than a phone bill, pretty much. If you were to go to Squarespace, for instance, or like if you were to go to Webflow, for instance, like just your hosting fee is probably like more than a third of our fee that we're charging that actually gives you everything, right? So
Yeah.
your hosting fee literally that's just rent. It's like that doesn't even mean you get to build the website. Or it's, hey, you're just paying for your space here. And
Hmm.
then you go and you hire people and stuff like that. So what we're trying to do is it's very mission driven. The goal is to obviously get this as far as possible and really save companies as much as possible, right? But we're trying to build an ecosystem at Newbie Websites essentially that is affordable, accessible, and that actually empowers businesses. But you never would have guessed that, hey, this school only pays $89 a month and they literally have an amazing website, right? But more importantly, like we're trying to build a future of websites and digital presence in general. So we see a lot of businesses, they'll have a website, but they need other things, right? They might need help with ads. They might need help with their Yelp listings. They might need help with marketing. They might need help with logo designs, all these different things. So with our subscription, you do have access to the portal where you get to actually converse with your account managers and your tech support specialist, and you actually get to request also add-ons from them. So our cheapest add-on starts at like $19, right? I believe in doing something that is right. Companies that I look up to are like Arizona Iced Tea. You will never see a commercial for Arizona Iced Tea, but Arizona Iced Tea is like 99 cents and everybody loves it. It doesn't matter. And you guys have Arizona Iced Tea in
Of
Canada, right?
course. Yeah.
Exactly. So like I don't know a single person that's like, ew, no, I would never drink Arizona iced tea, and they think they're better than Arizona iced tea, right? It's like it's
Hmm.
always at the gas station, it's always at the convenience store, it's always reliable. You know exactly what you get,
Yeah.
and you know exactly what you pay for, right? And I feel like we live in a day and era where a lot of businesses have capitalized off of, you know, off of the tiers of business owners, pretty much, right? It's like, I know you need to do this. I know you need to be online, so I'm going to charge you X amount of money. And honestly, in my field, a lot of designers and developers are those people. They need to charge thousands of dollars, obviously, to make a living, right? So essentially, they're not about to do any work for affordable rates. The difference is we built the tech and the system around it, obviously, that enables us to actually offer these rates. And I think that ultimately we need more companies that are driven by mission and that also have an actual purpose that, you know what, this is what we do it great, but we do it at an affordable price. So I always like to, look up to companies like Arizona Iced Tea, Costco, Walmart. Obviously, these are businesses that were like, hey, we're not going to make designer brands and have designer prices. We're going to make things affordable for everyday people.
Yeah.
So the mission here is to obviously, when it comes to online presence, how do we make it accessible and affordable for everyday people? And another portion of accessibility, obviously, is people with disabilities. Here is my 1-year-old pup, by the way. This is Petson. I don't know if you can see him,
Petson.
but yeah, this is Petson. Petson, come here. Come here, buddy. Focus. Come here. Yeah, this is Petson. He's a big baby.
Very
But
cute.
but one of the oh, don't touch that. One of the things that I look forward to, obviously, every day is seeing the difference that we make for a business, right? Like every once in a while, I'll go through my logs and I'll check my emails and I'll check our sport tickets and stuff, and it it's so fulfilling to see a business write like a huge response to one of our agents about how big of a difference we're doing for their business, and about how grateful they are for us, obviously. But ultimately, the goal here is to really become the face of, when you think of websites and you're a small business, small to medium sized business, you turn to Newbie. And I have nothing against, obviously, our competitors. I think they're great too. I've used Squarespace, I've used Wix, and I've used Webflow. But ultimately, I think that it's about time somebody actually gets up and makes a difference for what a website should actually be and how much should it actually cost. How well should it actually be, like the whole setup and stuff.
Hmm.
And GoDaddy's a company that has kind of done that, but they're doing it with AI. And I don't know if you used AI to build a site or a logo or anything like that before. You get exactly what you pay for, you
Yeah.
know. And the
I
truth
know.
of the matter is, most small business owners, they're not web designers, they're not web developers, they're not designers, they're not logo designers. What they know how to do is how to run their business. They know how to do that very well. But now is really the time where we're really, putting out the marketing out there and getting the tracks, because this is all self-funded, and using my own funds, obviously. So I've invested a lot of money into the company, and it's what really, gets me out of bed every day. I do have some other projects as well, like some other really cool projects that I'll be releasing. I'll be announcing probably within the coming months. One of them actually has to do with social media and content creation. But yeah, but to answer your question, as far as Newbie, that's the mission. That's what we're doing. So, if you have a website or if you don't have a website, you should really go to and Google Newbie websites, or just go directly to nubi.io. That's newbie.io, obviously, and make the switch.
That's awesome. Yeah, thanks for sharing that. It seems like an absolutely amazing service. So, yeah, it was awesome hearing about that. For just quickly speaking about me, yeah, I would have been perfect for me. And I know what you're saying is someone that is, starting my business. I didn't know much about website design, so it's tough for me. Luckily, this is just my personal example. So if you don't have this, obviously newbie's the perfect answer.
Of
But
course.
my friend is an excellent coder, and so he was very nice to help me with my website development, and that was great.
Excellent.
So, but that sounds awesome. And I want to switch it a little bit just because we're getting a little low on time, because
Yeah.
I still want to hear more about your content creation. You briefly kind of foreshadowed that and
Yeah.
touched on that a little bit, but along with your business, you're also doing a lot in the content creation. You build a following. How is that related to your entrepreneurship ventures, and how are you able to build that following to what it is now?
Ezra, I feel like we might have to do a part two, you know.
Yeah, there's so
like we
much
might
to
have to do a
cover.
part two
Truly.
or
Yeah.
something. Yeah, sometimes you can't cover everything, which is fine.
Exactly.
Like
Yeah.
it's fine. Um, actually, the part two, if we ever do a part two, we should do it in person. I'm more than happy to fly to Vancouver. We
That'd
can
be
get a
awesome.
studio, or
Yeah.
you can fly down here, and we could get a studio and we can record. But
Yeah.
um, content creation. So I've lived a lot of lives, is what I've
Seems
actually
like it.
realized,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And how do I put this? And by the way, I don't really have like a following. Like I don't have clout. I used to have a lot of clout actually, and this is the crazy part. I used to have a lot of clout. Like I'm
Hmm.
talking about like there was a point in time where I could post like a picture of my pinky and it would get like thousands of likes. I do not kid you.
Hmm.
Like I was very active on social media like way back in the days, especially when I was in college, right? Once again, utilizing your audience,
Yeah.
right? That audience that I built in college, they're not on social media like that anymore. They're not watching major stupid funny videos anymore. It's like they're busy with real life,
Hmm.
and they're like they probably all unfollowed me probably, right? It's like because I've done a poor job at keeping up to them. But my social media presence and following in general came from my stint, my career in modeling. So when I was 20, when I was 19, going on 20, I was fortunate enough to be discovered by Nike when I was at Portland State. And at the time, Nike was working on the apparel of and kits of the Rio Olympics,
Hmm.
and like miraculously, I fit the perfect size for their sprinters. And so they had me go to the headquarters and they did the whole body scan thing, and I fit the measurements exactly to the mold that they actually needed. And that was literally the beginning of my modeling career. So had Nike not discovered me, I never would have, even stepped foot into my modeling career. I mean, I was way more attractive back then, by the way. But I've lost all the juice, right? I've lost everything. But that pretty much is where my social media following actually
Hmm.
like really began growing, because once I started doing, I was fortunate enough, I did a bunch of shoots. Like I've collaborated with Brand Jordan. I've been on set with Kyrie Irving. I've been on set with like a Dwayne Lillard. Sorry, not Dwayne Lillard, but Dame Lillard. I did Dwayne Wade and Dame Lillard in the same name. That's funny. But Damian Lillard. Um, Karl Malone, like a bunch of NFL legends, like LT. Like I was really fortunate to work with a lot of big names, and ultimately I used to post on social media, and it drew like the masses to obviously follow me, right? And there was a point in time where I actually had like tens of thousands of followers, and then outside of modeling and stuff like that, obviously after I was done working with Nike, I got signed to an agency to manage me. So throughout my modeling career, I got to work with Nike, Adidas, Under Armour, Foot Locker, Foot Action. I did some work for the Yankees. Like I did a ton of work that it's like sometimes I look back and I'm like, wow, like I actually had a pretty cool like you know
Yeah.
career in modeling, which actually, technically speaking, my contract is still valid. Like it's still active right now. The difference is years ago, when I was trying to start newbie websites, right, 8+ years ago, when I realized that I really want to do this and I want to take it seriously, I had to actually take a break from modeling. Well, I told myself I had to take a break from modeling because I needed to really focus on building this thing out, saving, making the right business decisions to really get things up and running. And ultimately, it cost me my modeling career, right? I was getting no jobs, and ultimately I mean, I have a great relationship with my agency, which I'm pretty sure they've dropped me by now because I still talk to, they got it recently acquired actually, but
Hmm.
I still talk to people from there and they make it sound like I'm still there, but like, you're at the bottom end of modeling when they send you like a gig for diapers. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you just call it
Yeah.
good.
That's
You know what I mean?
tough.
Like
Yeah.
and and here's the crazy part. Those jobs pay because they use that
Hmm.
every single year because no one wants to do the diaper commercial, right? Like, or the diaper,
Yeah.
packaging and stuff, but it pays really well and they will
Hmm.
pay you because it's a license, right? They get to use it over and over and over again, but I don't need the money that bad. But you kind of know that you're towards the end when you're starting getting jobs and stuff like that, right? There's less of a excitement. So my following on social media obviously was mainly due to modeling. But the mistake I made years ago is I went off the grid for like a year. I
Hmm.
deleted all my social and stuff for like a year because I really had to lock in. How the kids say these days, like you got to lock in, So I
Yeah.
had to lock in and really build out my business and make sure that I was actually making money and I was going to be successful. And ultimately, I lost a lot of following, but I still have a decent following to this day and age. So the content that I try to share on social media, and my past was mainly like, hey, look how great my life is. And I'm on a plane, I'm on a jet or whatever it is, going to a shoot in Chicago, and then I'm flying back to New York. And then I have, a outing or whatever it is at the Bowery Hotel, and everything is so nice and influencer-ish and everything. And honestly, it was great when you're young, but ultimately I realized that I would like to make content that's meaningful. So most of the content that I do share when I create content, it's really just like real life stuff, like it might be videos of me and my dog, or training videos of me and my dog, or me actually just sharing experience or a story about entrepreneurship, which is what I'm actually really passionate about, honestly, with entrepreneurship.
Mm.
So ultimately, I would love to grow an audience that likes to read, an audience that is entrepreneurs, obviously, that want to share and want to collaborate and stuff. And ultimately, that's what I've done. I've really been like cleaning out my followers and also my following to be more geared towards everyday stuff. Like it's cool to make a really cool video and show my six pack abs that I don't have anymore, by the way, right? Like it's gone. Like I've hung it up. But it's more important to actually make content that I think resonates with people and that can make somebody's day better and help further them in life. And honestly, I'm probably going to use this podcast for content, right? Because I think some of the topics that we actually spoke about, somebody's going to appreciate hearing about
Hmm.
this, right?
For sure.
But ultimately, I, if you ask me what I want to do as far as content, like I love the campaign I did with Doer. And funny
Hmm.
enough, I was wearing Doer jeans. We're at the rodeo yesterday, and I actually was wearing my Galactics,
Oh,
my
that's
my
awesome.
performance jeans, man.
Yeah.
They're having big quads and athletic, like an athletic build. It makes a huge difference. Like the mobility, because most material that is like that like stretches and stuff, it looks like jeggings. You know what I mean? Like you can
Yeah.
tell it like doesn't look like jeans. Dure's stuff is actually like really good. Like the inseam, the cut, like it's really good. Like I was pleasantly surprised, by the way.
Yeah.
But I'd much rather do campaigns like that, because that's something that somebody can relate to. Like, there's a lot of dog dads out there, right? There's a lot of dads that wear jeans. I want to be able to wear something where I can play football with my kids and come home and do some yard work, like, or, I could do some handyman work or build a shelf or whatever at home, and then my wife can put her clothes on and we can go to a restaurant and still be able to put a different shirt over it.
Hmm.
So I'm more in touch with things that people can actually relate to, because I think social media sometimes is fleeting. A lot of times we all digest and consume things that we're so far removed from. It's like it makes no sense following like Kim Kardashian or like Kanye West or whatever it is. Like they're so far removed from us. It's like there's nothing that you could actually relate to them. Their problems are different than our problems. So it's like I tried to have an approach that's more humane.
Hmm.
On social media. And that's genuinely what I love. I also do giveaways on social media. So, like, randomly throughout the year, I'll do giveaways and partner up with different brands, and we'll do giveaways. The last big one was actually with Ray-Ban and Meta for their smart glasses. So, we actually ended up doing a giveaway for those as well. So, I enjoy doing stuff like that on social media.
Yeah, I saw the Ray-Ban, I think, on your TikTok, and that seemed like an
Yeah.
awesome product. I was like, I need to get one of these.
Yeah, it's
That's so sick.
honestly it's amazing. Like Meta just released well, it's not out yet, but they just announced at the Connect event the Orions.
Mhm.
Those are going to be sweet. I They're supposed to retail probably for like 1,000 plus for sure. Think like Apple Vision Pro, but without the big headset. It literally
Mhm.
just looks like
Just a
glasses.
streamlined version. Yeah,
Amazing.
that's amazing. Well, I feel like there's so much more that I could ask and we could talk about, but we might have to rain check it for another time. I've got one more
Absolutely.
question, but there's definitely, hopefully, one day we'll be able to reconnect because there's so much more. But
Absolutely.
one last question I want to ask is, it really seems like you've done it all, you're doing it all. You got such an interesting background. You've done modeling, content, entrepreneurship. For someone that's maybe younger, thinking of going into university and sees what you're doing and is super inspired about maybe starting their own business or entrepreneurship, what's kind of the key advice that you've learned and you would say they should take away from your experiences?
That's it's a really tough question to answer, man.
Yeah.
I'll say this: when I was 17 and senior in high school and stuff, and I had offers to go to a bunch of different schools. At least they were seeking to grant me an opportunity to obviously go to school there and get my 4 year degree. And all of them actually left me when grades came out and they found out, yeah, this kid has a terrible GPA, but his SAT scores are actually really high. I had really good SAT
Mm.
scores, but I just didn't have the discipline when it had to do with schoolwork. Right? I was always questioning schoolwork, and ultimately, I would never had the time to do schoolwork because Major's busy building a platform that he's trying to market at school. Right? When is he going to have the time to really do homework? It didn't seem interesting to me, really. So, to that kid that's listening to this or watching this right now, I was once you, and I was on my knees and, just praying and begging and realizing my whole world, what I thought was my whole world, was crumbling around me. But embracing failure is one of the biggest superhuman strengths you could ever have, because life is ultimately a series of risks and results, right? So wherever it is that you're at, and it doesn't matter if you're like 16, 15, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, even if you're in your 30s, even if you're in your 40s, a lot of times we think that there's a cap to success, or there's a cap to when you're supposed to do things by. And ultimately conquering that fear of failure will open every door that you're looking to open. So my advice to anyone, really, and not just the kid that's, I hate saying kid, not just a young man or young woman that's looking to, go to college or already in college and figuring things out. Ask yourself, sit down in a room by yourself at the library or something, grab a piece of paper and really just talk to yourself, right? Like, write a letter to yourself about who you really are. What's your background, right? Who you really are. Like, literally write your whole story. Or even better, forget about writing. Just pull up your phone, talk to ChatGPT, and just tell ChatGPT a story, right? And essentially just talk to it about who you are, your background, and really focus and hone in on who you really are and who you would like to be and what you would like to do. It seems like we live in the world this day and age where a lot of people don't go and do what they want to do because you can't afford it, right? Like, I want, like, there's a kid out there that's like, hey, I want to be a content creator and a YouTuber for a living, but they cannot afford that. They probably are like first generation, a second generation, or a kid that has to be successful to be able to feed their family and stuff like that. And that's what I mean by you're not in a position where you can actually afford that, right? Afford that risk. Ultimately, you just have to understand this. You're going to have to make that decision if you really want to get there. It's like you either have a decision of taking a risk early, or you're going to have to take that risk later on in your life, right? And ultimately, one of those is better than the other one. I'd rather take risk early than to take a risk, at the end of life, because one thing is for sure in life, and that's death, right? And if you're lucky, you get to live like a good solid 84 years, right? Like a good solid 84 years. And out of that 84, you probably only remember like 70, right? So if you do the math, you're in school for at least like 20 something of those. You really don't have that much time. So life is not that serious to think that you have to operate within boundaries and parameters. I challenge you to learn about yourself. I challenge you to take calculated risks that invest towards something that you actually would like to do, and stop listening to the world. Stop listening to your peers. Stop listening to, sometimes it can also be your own family, right? Like, ultimately, you know yourself better than anyone. So my advice to whomever is listening to this is, if you live life and you're going on this hike and you're seeing all these people living differently throughout this hike. You see some people at the bottom of the mountain and they've built a nice house, right? They have shelter and everything. And then you start realizing that, crap, at the top of this mountain there are people flying. And then you're like, how the hell are they flying? I never knew humans could fly. We're all on this hike together, right? Ultimately, I challenge you to keep climbing that mountain. And when you're at the top of that mountain, ultimately you have to understand that if you never jump, you will never fly. And that's literally like the key to life, right? Anything that we see, that we hear, or that, we get taught essentially are like these great people that have accomplished all these great things, but they're just like you. They might have had help when they were on that hike. They might have taken a shortcut on that hike, but ultimately to fly, they also had to jump. So we all have to take a risk. So ultimately, just take that risk, man, and pursue your happiness. And also go watch Pursuit of Happiness, that Will Smith movie. It's one of my favorite movies. I've watched it countless times. I've had it on VHS and DVD and also on streaming. But more importantly, you should go read the book of Pursuit of Happiness by Chris Gardner. It gives you way more insight to what the movie actually does not touch on. Great book.
Well, like, great advice there and great recommendation at the end. I watched it for the first time. It took me a while to watch it, but I watched it, I think, last year. Absolutely loved it. Like, I was blown away by how much I enjoyed that movie. I didn't really know much coming in, but it was amazing. And then I rewatched it fairly recently, showed my parents it for the first time. They really enjoyed it too. So thanks for the book recommendation, because I heard that Chris Gardner wrote the book, and I guess the movie's based off the book, but I haven't read that, so
It
I
leaves a bunch
definitely
of stuff
will.
out. It
Yeah.
leaves a bunch of stuff out that's really
Hmm.
important. But I mean, Chris Gardner, hell of a parkour, like
Yeah.
hell of a trajectory, and ultimately that is the epitome of consistency and persistence, right? Sometimes in life you have to be hard headed, but you have to be hard headed towards the right things,
Hmm.
and it's going to cost you. It's like success in life or risk in life or anything in life, right? Like you have to give something to get something else. Ultimately, you have to just ask yourself if you would really like to accomplish something, what is worth, giving, right? So you do the math, and whatever makes sense is usually the result. But just as long as you're happy, it's not about money, it's not about status, it's not about having things and all this. It's really about when you wake up every morning, are you happy to go to work, right? When you wake up, when you come home, like, and you're eating dinner with your family and stuff, do you still think about work in a good way? Do you look forward to, going to bed and waking up and doing some more work? Or are you like, man, I can't wait till Friday is here so I can actually have some time for myself, And I think that's a miserable way of living life if you have to wait till the weekend to actually live, or to wait till you're done with work to actually live. So do something that you love.
Yeah.
It wins every single time. Do something that you love.
That's amazing. I think everybody that's listening could take away a lot there. Major, this has been a great conversation.
Absolutely.
Feel like I learned so much about you, so many great tips that I'm going to take away from this conversation, and hopefully everybody that's listening can take away a lot as well. Before
I look forwad to the Odyssey channel on YouTube hitting 1 million subscribers, man.
Yeah,
I
we're on our
really do.
way, slowly but surely. Just
I
you
really
guys
do.
wait.
I really do.
But before we wrap up, where can everybody that's listening find your channels? What are your social handles?
So Instagram, all my socials are the same. It's I am Major Oni. So IAMMAJORONI. So I am Major Oni. And I'm active on social media. I'm not too cool for school or whatever it is. I am verified, but it doesn't mean anything. If you send me a DM, I do reply back to everyone, especially if it's something towards entrepreneurship that's a question or something that might facilitate your process and in your journey. I'll definitely get back to you. So I don't always reply back the same day, obviously, because life is going to life, and I do get a bunch of requests. But if you send me a DM or if you follow me, I'm not stuck up or anything like that. I'm just a people person. So, and if you see me in traveling or at the airport or just around in the city or whatever it is, definitely stop by and say hi.
That's awesome. You guys heard him. Check out Major on social media, and if you ever see him, say hi. And yeah, hope everybody enjoyed. Thank you so much, Major, for joining me today. This has been amazing conversation. So yeah, everybody that's
Thank you.
listening, don't forget to share with your friends that are interested in entrepreneurship, content creator, and feel like they can really gain a lot from this. And we'll see you guys in the next episode.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Ezra.
Yeah.